This is great.
Greetings and salutations, Praying for Superpowers.
Podcast about the deeper meanings, messages, and intricacies hidden within nerd culture.
I'm Trever Sharon.
And I'm Peter Jordan.
And today we're talking about Kelsier in our World Singers Characters Study series, or whatever we choose to call it later on.
There's always another blooper.
Okay, so Kelsier.
Oh, we're not doing that again?
Oh, I loved that.
Okay.
So Kelsier is in the Mistborn series, which is personally one of my favorite series by Brandon Sanderson. Mm-hmm. And he even recommends it as having a little bit of everything that he does well. But he is one of the main characters.
Mm-hmm. He's not the main character. I believe he's the main character of the first book.
Yeah.
Of the Final Empire. He is in his 40s.
Mm-hmm.
He is a gang leader who gets caught by the Lord Ruler, and in this world, basically, that's the God Emperor of the world, and he gets thrown into the pits of Hath Sin.
Which is this inescapable Alcatraz-esque place where he's put to work to collect this material. And I mean, this is the series. It's like 6 books right now and another one coming out eventually, right? And so
there's also the Secret History.
The Secret History, so a short book. It's a long series, and so there's a lot of details in it, but we want to hone in on this one character who is really interesting.
Yeah, so Brandon Sanderson has been interviewed saying that he wrote Kelsier as someone who is psychotic. He wrote him as someone who has no guilt in what they do, so he kills indiscriminately. He's manipulative, not only with his magical powers, which he does use to manipulate others' emotions to his ends, but he's also just manipulative in how he acts. He plans crimes ahead. He is very self-controlled. He's in control of his emotions a lot. He has no empathy, and he's fearless. So all of those rules are broken a little bit throughout the story, which is, Trevor, this is a question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Can someone be 80% psychotic, or is it a 0% to 100%?
That's a really good question. The DSM-5, which is our diagnostic manual, has kind of changed from this categorical perspective on mental health to more of a spectrum. And so, like, we lost the diagnosis of Asperger's to put it in the spectrum of autism, to say you can be at certain places. And I'm not entirely sure if psychotic is the same way, but I do think that it's really interesting if you look at like doctors and physicians, surgeons.
Yeah.
A lot of them statistically have more psychotic symptoms or traits. And some of that is a coping mechanism to deal with what they're going through. And so there's this perception that if you're psychotic, you're evil. And especially with Kelsier, I don't think that's true. I really like him and see him as a hero in this story.
Yeah, it's interesting. He kind of pulls a Batman. He's not the hero that they deserve, but he's the one they need. You don't want a psychotic hero in a healthy world, because that becomes an anti-hero or a villain.
Yeah.
But in a world that's turned upside down with slavery and just the worst existence that I've read in a fantasy novel, he is exactly who the world needs. Which Brandon Sanderson is really brilliant at writing a character that you shouldn't like and making you like them.
Yeah.
Through all of their flaws.
And one aspect that I truly adore about Kelsier is that he's always smiling, always happy, always kind of joking along. And I think it's definitely his coping mechanism.
He basically says it's his coping mechanism. Yeah.
And I can relate to that. And a lot of people can relate of like, I don't want to feel things, so I'm going to hold it at an arm's length through humor.
Put a face on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shut up. See right there, coping mechanism. I don't want to deal with the conflict.
Yeah.
But I think like it's so relatable that we have somebody, and it's hard too, because we look at Kelsier and we're like, oh, I love this character, and I love that that's how he's coping, and I kind of want to emulate that. And yet we still see that he has to interact with what he's feeling, technically in another existence, but
yeah. So just a couple things that happen that really have highlighted this psychotic nature of Kelsier is he has an interaction. Probably to me, it's the loudest interaction that happens in the Final Empire, and that's when Vin has saved Ellen from an assassination attempt, and Kelsier yells at her and is like, "What are you like? You risked all this for Ellen Venture? He's a nobleman. He's not a ska." And Vin just yells back at him and is like, What do you think you are? You're not ska? This isn't the life of the ska? When was the last time you had to sleep in an alleyway next to someone you were afraid was going to knife you or was going to get you sick and you would die from the cough he had? It's the only time where it's like, for the first time, he had no idea what to say. And it's the only time that he feels guilty in the books. At least in the Final Empire, it's the only time he feels guilt. So I honestly, seeing that is pretty intense to me, where Vin is able to break through all these barriers, but it's only because she catches him on his lie.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, that in my head is a mark of someone with an issue, sorry, I shouldn't use that term, but someone who's been trying to hide. You're most broken through when someone sees through all of your barriers.
Which is one thing that a lot of us I'm going to just say me, I'm bad at this, of challenging something. And so if I told Peter to shut up earlier because he quoted the Joker, or what I perceived as the Joker, and he felt upset with that and comes back at me, for me to say like, hey man, you've actually been using a lot of Batman phrases and I don't think that it's the right thing. Like, that is a conversation that kind of pulls us out and pulls us into a place of genuine relationship and growth, the same way Vin did with Kelsier. But we don't do that very often. And I think some of it is we don't have relationships that are strong enough right now to be able to do that. But it's something that we can pursue and try to go for in our friendships that ultimately is best for us and them.
Nice. There it is. You get a point. I think just kind of a final note is that Kelsier is... he admits to being weak in his own thoughts throughout any of his appearances in the books. He admits to his own weaknesses, his own flaws, and that's something that is super empowering for him. When he admits that he didn't come back from the pits of Hathsin quite sane, is actually when he reaches his strongest point in the Final Empire. So I encourage you to admit the things that you're not good at, admit the things that you struggle with, and work on it, work through it.
We can talk about it. We can talk through what we're going through with safe friends. So I hope you go forth and you conquer the challenges that stand in your way and whatever the Lord Ruler is in your own story.
Overthrow that empire.
With medals and powers beyond.
Do it for the god on accident and you didn't know existed.
And then die, but then have a challenge.
Then not die. Yeah, fight Savandrius.
Swim in a well of ethereal thoughts.
Yeah. Become God for a time.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Come back at the end of the book that Sanderson refuses to finish the series for.
And then eventually appear on Roshar and kill Kaladin Stormblessed. Fingers crossed.